It is now 7:15, and I'm going to call to order the special meeting for the Open Space Advisory Committee on November 15th at 7:15 p.m. at the Town Hall. Roll call is being taken by Sherry in minutes. If everybody could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody should have received an email packet that included minutes, so I will be looking for a motion to approve our minutes from September 27th.
Motion to accept.
Seconded by Luann. Any further discussion, edits, corrections, noticed in the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes will carry. Just to remind everybody, because this is a special meeting, we have to stick to the items on the agenda, so we can't add any additional items for this meeting. So old business, the Connecticut RC&D assessment report. That is the big report that Mark emailed to us, and I resent it out in preparation for this meeting. So hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to review the report. It was a culmination of several different agencies who went out there and put their stamp on it, so to speak. So I open up for discussion regarding the report. Mark, before we got started, did you have any kind of like overarching highlights that you wanted to draw to our attention?
Nothing in particular. I think we're probably better off. We can, if anyone has questions, we can discuss those instead of me reviewing it.
I'll start. I happen to notice, so at our last meeting in September, we did have a discussion regarding the herpetology report, which I know is next. But they reiterated something in here that we were struggling at our last meeting, and that was about like access. And so a thread I noticed through this report was the discussion about how difficult, and maybe that's the wrong word, that there will be challenges when it comes to figuring out how to access this site. They clearly state in the report that the right-of-ways are not an option, and during our site walk we learned that that was not going to ever be an option. It was way too wet. And then I noticed that they amphibian challenges right up front where we had kind of thought that access and parking could take place. So I didn't know if anybody else read that, saw that, had similar feelings about it. That was a notation I had reading the report. It was on land use, zoning, and transportation. People went into a specific section. And it did appear in others, that was the highlight.
Okay. I do know that we've known that the wetland area, closest to the road in the front section of the property is going to be the biggest challenge. I think that's why it would certainly behoove us to have an engineering company help us construct some kind of pathway, whether it be like a boardwalk, I guess, that would kind of cross that wetland area, because it is, I think, minimum 150 feet is like the most narrow passage across the wetland area.
I'm not even talking about accessing the back, so I'm talking about actually parking.
Yeah, so this is, I can read it if you want, it's under land
Please.
use, zoning, and transportation, and I'll start right at the beginning. The property to the west that was utilized for access during the team site visit may not be permitted as an access point due to the power line easement and federal highway right-of-way. Permitted uses within the RA 60 district need to be investigated further to determine if the proposed project is specifically allowed use or would require a special permit prior to moving forward with the development of the property for public use as a park that may include trails, parking areas, and restrooms. Clarification regarding the permitted permitting process should be confirmed. The proposed project is provide concurrence to the town of Plainfield's plan of conservation and development, as well as the state of Connecticut's wetlands on the site limit the amount of land available for access, parking, and other amenities.
Thank you, Sherry. Later in the report, it also talks about line of sight. So that there will be a line of sight challenge on gate downing or pulling out. So this was a discussion we had at the last meeting. We now have a report that has been, I'm just making everyone aware that this continues to be a hiccup that someone will have to problem solve around. Because I think this committee feels that, we have been tasked with the, I don't want to say oversight, but oversight, I guess, in some way to make recommendations. So that was everything else within the report aligned, in my opinion, with the herpetology report. I think was just kind of inserted in a briefer version into this report. But was there anything else specific to the ERT report that other people noted or want to note to the members?
Weren't they talking about parking for 20 to 30 cars?
Yep, I guess what I looked at, which was there for a second.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yep, so this
Page.
is, this is under watershed and hydrology.
I got it.
The property comprises of 2 areas with frontage along Cape Down Road. The team reviewed only one of these areas on May 17th. The team accessed the property through an existing utility corridor adjacent to the northernmost corner parcel. The utility corridor parallels the western side. The second area of the parcel with frontage on Cape Down Road is located between residential house lots with street access was 83 and 97. This potential access area was not inspected during the site visit. The town reported that the site will require a parking area to accommodate up to 20 vehicles and a vehicle with horse trailer, or enough space for a school bus to park in or turn around. One area was discussed as a proposed parking lot west of the team's point of entry out the utility corridor. That location is wooded and would require tree removal and grading before a parking area could be installed.
Just as that's what the town wants, not necessarily what they can actually accommodate.
I will say regarding the power line easement, federal highway right of way, discussions that I've had with the people that we met. So the initial engineer from Oregon, Judas B&L, who has worked on several of these projects, said that more times than not, Eversource is more than happy to work with these types of projects because it's kind of a win-win. We keep their access to the power lines open and accessible, while also benefiting the community. So it's not like this project would intrude on their power lines. So he did say that oftentimes Eversource is more than willing to work with towns, and that's kind of been, again, I think the forest is very that out. I can't say for sure this is something that we would need to further research, but I'm cautiously optimistic that won't be an issue regarding the power lines.
I thought that it specifically said that we could not do power lines.
The way I interpret this, it says during the team site visit, the property to the west that was utilized for access during the team site visit may not be permitted as an access point due to the power line easement federal highway run.
So have we just asked them at this
Eversource?
point? Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Can we do that?
Yep.
If Okay, that would answer that question
Right.
pretty.
Right,
quickly.
I think, I agree, it could be that simple. So, I agree.
I think it's essential, given the fact, when we met in September, that the committee members who were present had reservations about proceeding forward without a more detailed idea. We recognize that the grant has already been awarded, I'm not sure what language we want to use for that. But, we have to also be mindful that we are representing the citizens of Plainfield, and this is a big investment. And so to do a maybe, could've, might work, I think it would behoove us to have an actual conversation, not us, but someone have an actual conversation with Eversource to see if that's a possibility. Because even if we use Eversource's lot as access to ours, that's a pretty steep incline to the road. So, we're talking about investing on another entity's right of way. So, just food for thought.
And have we talked to zoning about this project? To get their thoughts?
Not necessarily.
If it's going to be even approved?
Not necessarily zoning, but I believe wetlands has been involved. Yeah,
Is wetlands approved?
I believe so.
Really?
Yeah.
Wetlands approved, like just the site in particular, or like an actual, like, these are the paths and
Site.
just the site? Even with all of the, can we skip to the, whichever this for?
Before we get there, any other points of discussion on the ERT report? Or we can go back, because they do kind of run each other.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Sherry.
So I guess my biggest concern with the herpetology report is that Dennis had made it pretty clear about his buffers with all of the wetlands. And there's a lot of wetlands on this property. So one of the things I had suggested at the last meeting was getting some maps that can overlay on each other. So, have a map with all of wetlands and then, the 100-foot, 400-foot from there to see what kind of actual usable property we will be left with in order to sort of determine this is feasible, because if it's, more than 3/4 of the property, that doesn't seem to make sense to put this, what our thoughts are for open space on this piece of property if we're not actually able to utilize it.
I agree. Looking at the maps that he provided,
The ERT report has like a wetlands.
yeah, and I wanted to get confirmation. I think they had it back. Yes, I think certainly a map that has an overlay of all of his buffers that he described would make sense. But I do want to say that nowhere in the report does he say that we can't have, that he would recommend against public use or that we can't have recreational
He
activity.
definitely did not say that, but he did say that he would not recommend mountain biking on the property.
Yes, yes.
So that was a limitation that he did put on there.
And I think we asked
Well,
about
in certain
horses
sections.
too.
This is
Does
section.
horses qualify in the same category as mountain bikes, or they're slower? What's the?
I think it's separate. Right.
He didn't say anything about horses, but I mean, a horse could certainly step on a turtle just as easily as a mountain bike could run over a turtle.
But it didn't say specifically for the whole thing, it just said certain sections for them, not much.
It's not public comment. No. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I am ex officio also, just one comment. Are we talking about an issue
worried about a turtle being stepped on by a horse or a bike, then a person can step on it too. I mean, it's, how far down
So
that
my
rabbit hole do you
personal
want to go?
concern, if we don't follow these recommended, like, 100-foot buffer, 400-foot buffer from these areas, there was definitely a species of special concern found on the property being spotted for. So we know that we have some endangered species on the property. So we definitely need to make sure that we're protecting those habitats for these animals that are declining in population. That's my personal concern.
And it would be the same concern for every single property in the town of Plainfield.
And I would certainly fight for that too, if I was on like that commission or
Well, I mean,
anything.
every single property.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're not doing a herpetology report on every single property either.
Right.
I think it, I do remember my issue with these maps. The way they make it look is that everything that's within this kind
It's
of
not.
framed in, right,
This
it's
isn't
only,
owned.
yes,
It's owned
exactly.
by other people.
Exactly.
I-
It's this green outline here.
This is the one I was looking at though. So like when I look at this one, oh, this is not a touchscreen, so I can't make it bigger. But when I look at this top,
Year or two.
yeah, this is on the ERT report. When I look at this upper section, this is so this is wetlands, the green, and this is Kate Downing. I want to see, like we had talked about at the last meeting, like it would be wonderful to see if we could get a local business, not a bid, we're not talking about going out to bid, but seeing what is feasible for a parking area in there, right? Because, yeah, go ahead. No, you can, it's fine. Show- I just want to show this this corner right there. Because 20 cars, a bus, like I want to make sure that we can actually accomplish what we're supposed to.
So,
I thought there was something in this report here that said something about the buses. Horse trailer, and actually addressed that.
It was in the ERT report, but what I'm saying is that the town has suggested that there is enough space for a bus to turn in, park, that there's enough space for, and I'm not saying simultaneously, 20 cars, or a trailer, truck and trailer, right? What I saw on our sidewalk, I know enough about construction and that seems like a really tight squeeze, right? And of course the buffers, how close to that, I guess upper, that would be the north side of the wetland. If we have to play that buffer in, right, which is where the overlays are important, now what are we really working with between that buffer and Cape Downing, that sliver? Because that's critical.
what I would propose, so to your point, I don't know if there is any local, do you know of any local company that can conduct a study, like a traffic study?
I'm not suggesting a traffic study, I'm saying,
Well,
I'm saying,
parking, traffic, that whole,
yeah, we have local businesses who could absolutely say how big of an area they could get in there
is that,
with the line of sight challenge, like that would have to be zoning, that could be our own, like, I'm just saying, I just think that that's important information,
The
you
line
know?
of sight thing is basically, if there's a massive tree or if there's brush gets cut down along the side of the road all the time. That's the line of sight. I mean, I do this on a daily basis for a building. I don't care if it's a new house construction or what it is, it's line of sight. You gotta be able to see 200 feet up and down the road. And 200 feet up and down the road is when you bring your car up to the edge of the road and you see, and most of the time all it is cutting down brush along the edge of the road, which the town owns 20 feet off from the center line of the road, so they can cut down as much as they want. But that's what the line of sight is. So the line of sight to me is not a critical thing on this project right here. The critical thing in this project is getting across the wetlands. And that's what we have to, if we're going to go forward with this project, if we're here to shut down the project, it seems like some people that's what they're here for. They're not here to make the project work, they're here to shut down the project. But to me, no, like the line of sight, and that doesn't mean anything.
I'm actually just gonna stop you there and make a correction. I think that the individuals who have been tasked on this committee are here to represent the community.
Oh, no,
Not
no,
necessarily
no.
shut down a project. I
No.
think that is a rather bold statement. I think that we are, it's an assumption that that's the statements that are being made are being assumed,
Well,
and that's
you
the
can-
intention.
Just listening to the conversations, it
Well, I
seems.
think we have to do our due diligence
I'm
with
not saying
this,
we don't. I'm
and
not
we're
saying we
basing
don't.
our
No.
information off of the
No,
reports that
but
are
I'm just
given.
saying, even like the wetlands, all right? Say you could go across an area where we know there's, habitable, turtles and things of that nature. We're not saying we're gonna build a right of way through there and just devastate the area. It's like Marcus made a comment, says a lot of places, even in the state forests you go into, where they build, pathways out of wood and stuff like that, so that everything that lives there can still live there. We're
It's like the
not,
rhododendron sanctuary, just for instance.
yeah, that's the perfect situation right there.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying to go in there and just do whatever we want. I have no idea, no plans on doing that whatsoever. But to me, is that it took a long time for the town to obtain a large piece of property like this to try to do something recreational for the town. And I think we should try our best to try to make it work. That's all I'm saying.
I think I can speak for myself that I concur. Clearly, I sit on other commissions that I value open space and recreation.
Open space is awesome.
So, what I think that I'm saying is that I want to make sure that we can actually get ourselves, I think personally, Rick, once we can park a car,
Yeah,
we can accomplish all kinds of things.
I agree. Parking a car is a big deal. That's my biggest concern.
But for me, it's parking a car. And when I talk about line of sight, it all depends on where we can actually exit. Are we exiting closer to the bridge, the
That's-
highway bridge?
That's the problem with the bridge, because it's
That
columns.
was my line of sight,
You
Rick,
look to
where
the
I was
left, you got
challenging it.
4 columns or 2 columns or whatever. To the right is okay, but you might have to nose out a little more. And the other thing is, when you talk about a private contractor, how many yards of fill are actually going to be needed to push in there and level it out to get access to walk down to the first crossing? We don't have a clue, what it would cost to put the parking lot, right? But wouldn't that be the first thing we need to find out if we could do that,
That's I think you were saying
Right.
about Eversource is a big deal.
Because
Right,
once you
so-
put the parking lot in, then you start working on your paths.
The town already has set aside funding as a match for the grant that we received. Funding to hire an engineering firm. We haven't signed any contracts because simply we wanted to, cross our Ts, dot our Is with the ERT report, make sure that we had your approval. But in my opinion, let's hire an engineering firm.
At least for years, because you are going to have to, build boardwalks and stuff like that, and that takes time.
Okay.
All right, I messaged over to Ryan. Inland Wetlands has not seen the plans. I did give the plans though forward to the town planner, so I don't know what happened there. He's going to look at it with me tomorrow. We'll review the property, see what major issues, if any, are concerns we can bring back to this committee. The other thing is that we'd like to also, there's some engineers that we can get some free advice from, and I'm talking about the parking lot, because if you want to know the size of the parking lot, what could be best for the types of vehicles that are coming in there, what can be used for turnaround area, we can ask an engineer who will give us some free advice to start with, as the size of what you're going to need. And then the sightline is not an issue whatsoever, really. So I'll talk with him tomorrow, and we'll get back to you.
That'd be great. We have a meeting scheduled, and I just want to emphasize how important attendance is, because we are a quarterly meeting group, so.
I have another comment with all this. Is there, besides the Eversource entrance, is there possible, or maybe you can ask Ryan, is there possible for another entrance someplace along that area that would be more feasible?
Once he sees the plans, he can look at it.
I do know in the ERT report, in the land use, zoning, transportation, it did say that Let's see if I can find it. It talked about how there is a portion of the property that does have access to Cape Downing Road, but it's between two residential properties. So I think that would be less desirable.
Well, it's between two, it's between two residential properties. Is there enough room for an actual, like, road?
Access.
Access to just bring it, so all you need is just at least, you know, doesn't need two, it would be nice for two vehicles, but if it was wide enough for, because the state forest too, sometimes that road is only one, you know, kind of go off to the side. But if that would be easier access and then to be open a little bit more the parking lot, whatever. and then to go from there.
Right.
Yeah, the ideal entrance though is near the bridge because you don't have to bulldoze or cut trees or, you know, just fill.
But, you know, we're close to wetlands, I think.
You
in
can't
that
fill
situation,
wetlands.
so that's-
Right. But the
Yeah.
only other access, if he's talking, is like closer to 165 Cape County where Miller's lived.
Yeah.
And there's a ledge there, and there's a brook. And the only other property is across from where Sherry Pelletier lives, the brick house, like kind of where Kenny Riley and his wife live.
Oh, yes,
It would have to be more than likely after that, between Kenny's house and where Miller's 165 used to be. So that would, you know, you'd have to break in off the road. But if that's the area, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure either, and I'm not sure what the line of sight is. for
Right.
that area, because I do know there is a slight bend, and that could be right at that area.
Yeah, up above the brook, that's the worst part. You know, where the guy had the paving equipment on the right, that's the worst part of the road is you pull out of there with a trailer, it's over. There's no sight line there.
Yeah, I did find that brief paragraph. It says the second area of the parcel with frontage on Cape Downing Road is located between residential house lots with street addresses 83 and 97 Cape
Oh.
Downing Road.
Okay,
This potential access area was not inspected during the team site visit.
okay, so that's the first couple of houses on the road.
So, I guess going back to addressing these concerns, these questions, to my knowledge, to date, we really haven't spent a dime on this project. Everything that we've done has been volunteer effort, which is fantastic, and I think we've certainly done our due diligence. But I think part of the reason why it's taken so long to get to this point is because we've relied on volunteers. I think it's worth, seeing as the town has set aside money, I think it's worth taking that next step, hiring, an engineering firm. We can work with local businesses as well to really start answering these questions. And I think until we, have the overlay maps and some sort of conceptual design where, okay, we have the overlay maps, we now drill a conceptual trail, we can see what we're actually working with, and same thing with the parking lot as well. I think, going to Eversource, going to them with a team of people versus, me, who's kind of like a Joe Schmo to Eversource, and saying, hey, we want to build this parking lot. I think if we had a team that has experience working with Eversource, experience working on these types of projects, we could probably address these questions a lot quicker than myself doing it.
Yeah, like almost everybody's comments tonight is that the parking lot is the most important thing at this point, so.
Right, and I'm not an engineer, so I certainly can't.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't have a parking lot, then we don't have a
Exactly.
So what are the next 3 things we need to do as of after tonight?
Well, if I may add, I pulled up the GIS, that was what I was doing over here, so I pulled up Plainfield's GIS to see what they were actually referring to, and I'm sorry that I bumped it. But when you have however we decide to look at this engineer, I don't care how it works out, but can we look at both of those points to see if there's enough road frontage on the other? I can't tell here, like on the GIS, what it is, I'm sorry.
So you
gonna need a whole lot of room. Twice the size of this room, you'd probably do it.
Yeah,
For parking or for?
For the access, it'll need.
yeah, because
Right.
Right.
that might be better. I
Two
mean, like,
spots, at least 2 spots.
because we have two options. The great news is that there's two options. So I would like to suggest to the committee that we encourage the town to investigate both points of entry to see if there's one more suitable for parking than
How
another.
far apart are those entries, how far apart is that? So the secondary one?
I can't, if I X out of it, it will take my box away, but, so the first one is up here by my finger, and then the other one is right there where that red tip hits Cape Valley.
There's actually, the property just come to a point at one,
I just don't know if there's enough road frontage to
Okay.
put it,
I just want to know how close
Yeah.
up there. Because if it's higher up and then what is that land, you know, that's not as much wetland in that, the second one. Seems to be drier.
What do
the
they need,
second one,
200
the
feet?
second one's gonna be actually dry because that's the, if you when we walk the property, you know,
It was
as you
high.
remember, it's
It's
higher.
high.
and it actually was, I'm not gonna use the word level because if you ran a transom on it, it would not be, but it was more gently sloping
There you go.
than our initial entry point,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
which might be easier to work with.
That's what it says.
200 feet.
So anyway, that would be a suggestion for one seeking out engineer support for that.
And if we don't, because it does, just going back to line of sight for a minute, because it says that our ordinance here requires 200 feet for new access to the town-owned roadways. And they were questioning, it's not clear if that ordinance applies to municipal use, but generally the construction of any access point should at least meet these requirements. So if that's going to be an issue, will that have to be an ordinance that needs to change within the town as well?
To me, you don't want to change, if they say 200 feet of line of sight, that's what you need 200 feet, and then try to change the ordinance to that, that means, let's just open up a can of worms and anything else gets built in the town plan, so you don't want to do that.
Right, so investigation one will be engineering and parking potential. I also have heard overlays would be lovely if we could see overlays with setbacks for the wetlands. Anyone else have something that they think would be really valuable information to support decision making?
Best point of entry for wetland area.
To like cross it?
Yeah, I would ask DEP where they have trails various places. That would be, if we could say, oh, hey, we have a situation kind of like that, let's do what they did rather than reinvent the wheel. Consult DEP, DWP, I guess, with them. Because I believe how many miles of trails there in the state, I'm sure they've run across something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should use them as a model because, you know, we have Patchogue State Forest, you know, right down the road. And they've
Could
probably,
go to Cape Cod, there's walkways that walk out from everywhere.
right,
And cheap, but
Oh, yeah, it's not, it wouldn't be a couple pennies for something like that, if you have to, yeah.
oftentimes though, those are the most enjoyable. You know,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
And in here, I'll also include that do we need to make a motion on that to talk to engineers, or are they just gonna?
I don't think we need to make one because we're advisory only, so
town of
it sounds like the
Plainfield
consensus of the group
Yes.
agrees with that.
Yeah, the parking lot's the main situation.
engineering firm.
And I know, you know, I just ask these questions because I know that the town will have a level of liability, right, with all of these things, that for some, you know, the state forests seem, I agree, like, they're not, some situations when we access the state forest aren't fabulous either. And I think it is beneficial that we have things that are more suitable for walking because the state forest allows motorcycles.
Not everything.
No, but
Yeah.
many places, right? So that's not somewhere someone's gonna wanna walk safely with young children.
Yeah, but that's-
So there's a lot of value for us trying to figure this out. We just wanna make sure that we can get people to park their car.
And they're saying it's not suitable for like they're saying absolutely not, like that wasn't suitable. And so there's areas that are, can be posted, follow it or not, I don't know, but it can be posted that it's just a walking trail because, you know, you might come into an area where there's a built wooden overlay to
Right.
the, you know, so you don't want, you know, what's going on. Although certainly I wouldn't take my horse on that, or, you know, a mountain bike, yeah, they probably would, but just, yeah, so it could be, if that's gonna have to be another, probably down the road, it's like, gonna have to be marked, or it's gonna be the trail for mountain bike, or.
There's definitely plenty. I mean,
It's just, but.
plenty of
I think
acreage
everything we
once
have
you get
to-
past the wetland.
Yeah,
There are
that's
a lot
nice.
of amazing things.
That's
So, add Kevin's point about the best place to cross wetlands.
I have confirmed points of entry for potential parking lot, including wetland areas. Want me to reword that? For points of crossing, including wetland areas.
Points, I would add points of crossing, because we're not talking about the parking lot per se. We're actually talking about the best way to get over it, which could dictate like parking. So if parking's here,
Yeah,
then
when
how
we have
far
review of
people.
next steps, I can also put that in the minutes, just very concisely, like, Mark will contact Eversource, Kevin will talk to Ryan, you know, even though it's in sort of, yeah.
That's the other thing too, is that the parking area, excuse me, doesn't really have to be exactly where you enter the area. The parking area can be, you know, down the road a little bit, and you have to walk down the road to get it, enter into it. We can
Right.
do that also.
Yeah, and I know that ADA, I was gonna say ADA, I was thinking, but ADA compliance is also a factor in some of what we just mentioned, right? So, and we know that that was a list, that was on this committee's list of original, like, things that it
Right.
should check the
I
box
would
for.
try to help everybody.
Right. So, and thank you everybody for accommodating a blending between the two reports. Is there anything else that we want to discuss regarding the ERT report or the herpetology report so that Mark and Kevin and who else will help this team task list?
So I think the major part is that is the parking, and if that has to be across any wetlands or parking, you know, that's gonna have to be, that would be the one major thing. The other wetland areas within the property would be either the walkway for board or something like that. It's not gonna be, you don't want to disturb, wreck, pull up, you know, whatever, the wetlands or the animals or, but that first, the parking lot, have to do something too, that's gonna be compliant.
Yeah, not a point for today, it's not important, as important as the parking and getting people in, but I happened to notice in the ERT report, there was a statement about if you reduce the canopy, that would change the habitats.
I read that too.
Yeah, so that might shift potential concepts down the pike about it, but I thought about it in the lens of like, we know, I think, and this maybe we're moving into recreation update, but I know that, I think next steps was logging, like, and so, like, how does that, where are we with that, I guess?
Yeah, there's no updates with that.
Okay.
And that's kind of like a tricky situation because truthfully, the state forester and also the Conwood reports, both of those made it very clear that there's a lot of, dead wood, and they both recommended harvesting.
Oh, you have a mouse.
Just one?
There he is.
However, I know
It's comfortable.
You have it.
I know that can certainly be challenging. I know, like you just pointed out, that could change, the habitat. So those reports were recommendations.
Yeah, but it's
So we
also
don't-
safety too. I
Right,
mean,
right, exactly.
The
Yeah, I mean,
deadwood is a safety
Deadwood
factor.
is not giving a canopy
Yeah.
though, because there's no leaves to
Yeah.
it, so.
Right,
But
that's a
you-
safety factor.
Going
Well, it's
in
a
and being able
liability.
to sort of pick out those individual trees without disturbing, those sort of buffers that they suggested is I think is going to be the more difficult part. But Deadwood definitely needs to come down because you don't want to be liable as the town for somebody walking under
So I
that
suppose the
tree.
reason why I bring this harvesting up now is because of the Conwood report, it did talk about trying to utilize frozen ground, right? And I'm just mentioning it so that we don't miss another
Opportunity.
season or whole year, I guess, when you really think
You
about it.
know, 1 week of frozen ground.
I'm not suggesting rush it either, I'm just
You
saying,
don't
you
have
know,
frozen ground, you just-
is that something that maybe we should have Mark look into seeing if there are companies that are available to do
nothing wrong with that.
any, harvesting on this
Yeah.
parcel?
Deadwood harvesting.
For the conduit, for the
Yeah,
conduit.
if I remember, yes, per Conwood, I think, if I remember correctly, it also talked about selective harvesting of some live wood, because they want to encourage growth of,
That was in there.
yeah. So I guess that kind of goes back to the debate of changing the canopy, because that would potentially change.
But that's also forest restoration too,
Right.
so,
You realize that the reason why it has such an awesome, huge, massive timber is because of all these wetlands. You can't, the cordwooders couldn't get in there all these years ago. The stone wall, obviously there was access because there's stone walls that are everywhere. And then what basically stopped that was 395. And when did 395 get built? 1950, whatever.
50s.
Mid-50s roughly. There was no such thing as environmental impact statement in those days. They just kind of did it.
plowed right through.
All right, so again, this part of the world, 80% of the buildings that are there now weren't there in 1955. They're not just on Lake Road. I don't think there's more than 2 houses. The access to that property disappeared when 305 left, which probably in a way upset, it created the drainage problems that we have now, because they just kind of put it there. I'm guessing that since there's stone walls in there, it didn't have the drainage problems then that it does now.
Right, and it probably had heavy land use on it.
Yeah. And again, those are good sized stone walls, but they're beauties, and that was a farmer's field once upon a time. All them years ago.
So I know that's a hefty list, if you could accomplish it by next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but
Well, we happen to meet
Give
next
a
month. Next month is our regular meeting, so I was just trying to think, and the foresting portion, if the ground freezes, because it didn't really do a whole heck of a lot
Not last year,
so.
no. And I just watched the major forecast tonight before I came here, it's gonna be a really warm winter.
are they saying that? I thought it was
Seems to be
opposite.
already colder.
They said, because of the ocean temperatures are very warm.
Well, it better be dry, we already got 100 inches of rain this summer.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
So even with, so the logging, they're gonna have to have a place where they can have it. So we still have to get that situation first of access to the property and everything. As long as they do say, I mean, that's gonna be,
Where that skid yard ends up being major parking.
Right.
so, so that has to, so they can't even finish this without moving everything.
Yes, yeah, this is a tall task to try and get all of these addressed within a month, but truthfully, I'm excited because I think now we can really get the wheels in motion and.
Even if you make phone calls, Mark,
Right.
and that's the update, is that you can't make initial contact.
Yes, and I don't want to keep bringing up the engineering firm, but the significance to that is simply, one, they're experts, we can defer to them, they have a team, so they're able to.
That's what we need, that's for sure.
Right, they're able to, it won't be me addressing all of these, it will be a team addressing these.
Yeah, I think everybody's on board with you guys
Yeah.
moving forward with getting them done because we have all these reports in, which we do.
Right.
Do you need to know or no?
So I did email our contact to the state for the trails grant this morning. I'll double check right now, but when I left the office, she hadn't gotten back to me. I asked her when the next round is. I believe last year, or sorry, this year, 2023, it was in March. So I'm anticipating that's when the next grant round will be. So as long as we're able to show progress by that point, by the next round, then we should be able to apply if need be for more funding. That's really the only update regarding. Back in September, we signed the contract. I can't remember, but that probably hasn't been mentioned yet.
Can they be put towards accomplishment of tasks on this project for the March deadline? Or do we actually have to put out money?
I would imagine, I don't remember off the top of my head the objectives that they identified for us, but I imagine, yes, like I said, we've certainly done our due diligence with.
Because if we have to spend money, the engineers would be a great way
Yes.
to do it and get the information we need and also show progress towards our goal.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that we have to spend money, it's more so, like I was saying earlier, having conceptual designs, having conceptual plans to show to them at this next round, saying, listen, okay, now we have the vision on paper, we're ready to take that next step.
All right, we're up to review of next steps. So Sherry, start a list for us.
All right, Mark is gonna reach out to Eversource. Ryan, who's inland and wetlands. Are you specifically reaching out to engineering or do you want me to stick with the town of Plainfield?
I can do that.
Per the Conwood report though, which did include other,
So,
I wouldn't.
Well, that's why I'm saying selective slash.
Oh, I'm sorry, when you said selected Deadwood, that's how I heard it. So I just want to thank you.
Selective,
I appreciate it.
selective. So I'll take out the per the Concord report because I did the selective slash.
Got it.
Purpose companies.
Thank you.
We need to confirm inventory. Or would that be still in the engineering?
I would put that in the engineering, maybe either like a sub or underneath it, invented,
Entry slash parking.
so also under engineering, best point of access to cross.
Map with improvements, would that be you as well? Mark will reach out to Eversource. I'm gonna make it in my notes, so it sounds helpful. Kevin's meeting with Brian. Mark will investigate engineering firms to big things, work confirm the points of entry and parking, and the best point of access to forest wetlands. Mark will investigate selective slash harvesting companies, we're working on that with overlays regarding wetlands and proposed buffers. All right, per reporter.
I would say this is probably a couple of steps further down the line, but we need to consult DWP as far as access with trails, that kind of thing, whatever. What they've done for other places, see if we can fit our situation. And I guess this is probably several steps along that.
Would that be the engineering part though?
It would be. Sure they have any good ideas about how to
Oh, yeah.
get through this problem.
Anything else to go in there? Did I miss anything that anybody put on their list?
Follow up on the Connecticut recreational trails grants.
I'm sorry, what?
Follow up on the Connecticut recreational trail grants. Just for a point of information, that is usually the beginning of the year when the application opens up, January, early January. It takes 3 months for the opening, so probably by March, they'll close it off.
Okay.
I think that sounds like a very healthy task list.
Like Thanksgiving?
Yeah, by tomorrow. We'll be expecting in our inboxes tomorrow.
Who wants to run winter basket? Who wants to take that on?
Okay, so hearing no more next steps, this is our time in the agenda for public comment. Hearing none. Our next, this would be a regular meeting, so tonight was a special meeting. Our next regular meeting will be December 27th at 6 p.m. That's our normal time spot. I'll be looking to entertain motions. Second by Vern. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. It is 8:08. Nice. Thank you very much.
Mark, do you think about our other grants that are associated to this?
As of now, no.
I mean, you could go after transportation enhancement.
Connectivity, like transportation connectivity.
It is associated, non-motorized, fit underneath that.
Yeah,
LOT SIP, LOT-CIP versus LOCIP also fits underneath that. Community Connectivity Grant also fits underneath that. There's lots of different programs. National Recreational Trails Program.
yep, that's the one that we have now. Yeah, well, you know, I'm always open to that.
How do you spell Ryan's last name?
Is it